Welcome to another episode of Angels, Positivity and Love. Incredible guests from the world over. All sorts of backgrounds. We've had an Australian actor who, if you watch Amazon Prime these days, you can still catch the series from Down Under, Sea Patrol. We've had a White House doctor, physician to the U.S. president, Rear Admiral, retired U.S. Navy. We've had the youngest Delta Force operator ever admitted at 23. He's in his, I'm going to say 50s today. Plenty of doctors, psychotherapists, healers galore, up and down, left and right. That's the bulk of our guests. Psychotherapists, New York Times bestsellers, blah, blah, blah. Amazing folks. They've often been on a transformative journey of some sort, a lot of near-death experiences in there. And they've decided to give service to others, which seems to be the unifying theme here. It is called Angels, Positivity, and Love for a reason. High vibe, hopefully, on the show. Lots of fun. And I'd like to welcome a guest from Florida right now, Cathleena Hailley, who's absolutely fantastic. She's, I'm just going to have to describe her this way. Frequency alchemist is how she describes herself. She's fully plugged in at a galactic kind of cosmos level, can pretty much explain anything. She's here to help us out on a bunch of fronts. Holding the space, though, for others is what I would say she does best, and helping people get into alignment with who they truly are, have always been, and where they're headed. I don't want to make it sound like a commercial, but that is Cathleena all the way. She's just back from Ireland. Maybe she'll share a little bit about that trip with us. First, Cathleena, welcome to the show, Angels, Positivity, and Love.
Thank you, Michael. It's wonderful to be here. I'm excited to see what wants to come forward. So
if you could share with us, how big has this journey been? When did it start? Was it age 5, 10, or was it something later in life where everything clicked and you got into this new gear?
Yeah, kind of all the above. I always say I came in the world on. So, some of the first experiences I had was from a very small child where, you hear your parents say something out of their mouth. And then, so I heard that, and then I would hear their thoughts and it was different, and I'd feel their emotions and it was different from that. So it was always kind of this interesting time, and I was very intuitive, and there's a lot of chaos, a lot of different things that were going on in my home anyway. My father, I'd say, was awake, but I think he was probably at least bipolar, could have been schizophrenic, different energetics going on. And I even recognize with schizophrenia, I think is a lot of times just the crown chakra is split and open. So there's just a lot of different things going on. So I think he had a lot of interesting stuff. So, we were introduced to a lot of different things. And one of them was transcendental meditation. And I was about 6. So when I would meditate, and I didn't realize this till later in life, but I would go into a meditation, and there were 2 people with me, and it was Yeshua and Mary Magdalene, and we were holding hands. And so there was the 3 of us, and then we would go deeper. And as I went deeper, I was taken to the Akashic Records. And again, I didn't know what that was at the time. And to me, it looked like this Roman building with these big pillars, and there were these beings that were outside. They were light beings. So some of them looked different colors, different things. And later I realized they were like the Arcturians, Andromedans, Syrians, so on. And I remember going inside and seeing there was a pillar inside. There was a book there, and I did look at the page. I don't know what it said, at the time, and just kind of, so that was, and I didn't remember any of that until much later in life. I sort of fast forward through my life. I do have a business degree. I was a massage therapist for like 30 years. And during that time in massage is when a lot of different things, energy things, started to come forward. But it wasn't really until about 1992, I think, 93, 94, something like that, where I had my first psychic reading, which was interesting. And during that reading, I was introduced to the Council of 9. And at the time, the woman who was reading, she didn't know some of the language and things that I recognize now. So she said that she said I had a dual contract. One was as a people mover, and the other was a healer. And she described that there were these beings, that she said there were these rings around the earth, and that they were civilizations, and that these beings didn't live there, weren't from there, but they lived there. And now I recognize a whole different, it's grid systems, a lot of different things. And it was the Council of 9. And they told me that I do automatic writing. And they said, that they were going to move me. I was living in the north at the time, and they said they're going to move me to the south because all my energy was being used up in survival. And so they said I do automatic writing, and they wanted me to start to do that, and to at the same time, same space, and that they would communicate. And so I began to do that, and at first it was interesting because I heard it in my head at the same time, so I was questioning it. So I said, okay, you need to do something different. So they changed the handwriting. And so my handwriting goes like this, theirs went the other way. And then they would also introduce and say, we are here. And so they began to tell me that that I was going to meet a healer, and that I would go to England and I would learn some spiritual energy things there. And I would meet people who would show me the spiritual ropes in Florida. That's where I was moving to. And yeah, it was like kind of crazy. Like a week later or something, I get a phone call from somebody who said he's representing this guy, Eamon Downing. He's in England, and do you want to go? And of course, I ended up going. And the people who I met there, where there's a place called Casadega in Orlando, that's a spiritualist camp, and the head of Casadega was there at the same time, and all this kind of stuff. So it was really interesting, how things always, and this has been my life, how things have fallen into place. But that was really curious, and from that point on, it's kind of been that sort of thing. I've had people come into my energy. They'll say, I got your name in a dream, I need to come see you. And so lots of different things took place. Of course, the fast forward where I am now, I had, during that time, actually, I channeled a healing center, and it was a particular design of this healing center that had the building had 12 points at the top. So it had like a peaked roof, and this peak that goes into the earth. And so it had 12 points going to the earth, and it was made out of glass, was the design. And then it would go into the earth, had a glass floor, and then it had 10 sides that would go all the way around it, and the peak at the top. And then it had this double helix like glass structure in the middle of it that I saw with like water. I think it was blue and white. I think it was representing the DNA. And then there were rooms around the edges inside it, and the people that would go into this were from the densest frequencies to the lightest frequencies. So it'd be like doctors and lawyers and so on, to healers. And the idea was that anybody that came in the vicinity of the building, their frequency would raise. And certainly they came in the building and saw the practitioners, their frequency would raise. And the way that the practitioners, the design was that they would either, not for free, but basically discount their services, and then they would receive recognition for others. And it was like, this would be a hub one, and there'd be smaller ones in different areas. And so I literally set out to do that. I went to Orlando, and I got an architect, and I was trying to do this, but funding and so on. And then so fast forward, this became a handheld instrument, and it's called a frequency adjuster that I have, that I was guided to fully patent. And so it basically is the 0 point for all frequencies. So the 0 point is the place of no thing and all possibilities. So it's basically you without an ego. So the handheld one is for the 0 point for your body. There is another template that I have that's for the earth template that I have. But I do see at some point a building that looks like the frequency adjuster that somebody could walk into, that would actually bring them into that 0 point, because I do have more guidance at this stage of the game for what I say is a 5D community, or a conscious community. And the way that I see it, and I see it as a template, is that we would be bringing back all of the natural, like the indigenous aspects of communication with all the consciousness, how the bugs would be migrated by essential oils or different plants or different things like that. So it's not any toxins and things, and everything is connected together. Also, the buildings are more circular because it's for the way that energy works and so on. And so I do see, and I think there'll be like this frequency adjuster building that'll be within that as well. And I see that as a template, so that there'll be a particular area, we create one and then move to other areas around the world. And my vision is that they'll all be connected energetically, so that some people might live in one, but that they could travel to any one of them and be welcomed. You know, it really it's kind of what I'm feeling is coming in, and that's kind of the bigger picture of what I feel like I'm here doing. But so I know that was a lot of information, but it wanted to come
Great.
through.
It's great. We're going to dive into a lot of that, especially the very beginning part too. I wanted to read a quote to you. It is just a Western view that there is one life with a start and an end. And I'd like to take that out bigger for society. Right now, thinking still rules the roost. I'm about to do it in another hour, as much as I can the rest of the day. We're all up here. A lot of us are up here thinking, thinking. And yet there is awareness on the horizon for mankind, more consciousness, whatever you want to call it, spiritual awakening. Part of that consciousness is already here. Can you give us the big picture? I mean, this isn't the first iteration of man, the last, I don't know, 2,000, 5,000 years. Can you talk to us about what's happening, that there's more kindness, love, gentleness coming in, and we're getting help from further out or from within, interdimensionally, whatever you want to call it. But can you give us that pep talk?
Well, there's so much in what you're saying there. You know, as humanity, as the human, so the human form is we're considered galactic royalty, because we're literally made up of, I think, either 23 or 26 different species, galactic collectives, if you will, you know, energies. And we have lots of amazing abilities, and but they've been shut down through the really, it's through a mind virus, so to speak, that's been implemented through humanity, specifically so that we keep the DNA at a 2-strand DNA. And we really have 12-strand DNA. And it is this way. They say junk DNA. Well, there's never junk DNA. But the way that I see it is that there's been like something on top of the DNA. So it looks like if you were to have, you know, this beautiful piece of silver, and it's tarnished so much so that it just looks black, you know, but that tarnish stops the conductivity of that silver for what it can do in terms of, like, say, electromagnetic field. And so, you know, until we clean it, you don't have the full awareness of who you are. Well, this idea of ascension is really incension instead of ascension. It's we are embodying who we are. I am present. So it's like the more that we embody ourselves, the more we shed off that tarnish, so to speak, of what is keeping us from our natural communication with all there is. And so in the bigger picture, it's like, as that occurs, we are recognizing that we are love, and that all is love, and that all is connected. You know, it's really been a forgetting, you know, more than a learning, you know. And I think that this is the conundrum with humanity, and why it's so easy to confuse it and to bring it through the mind. So the mind is just like a computer, and you know, whatever we put in it, it has limits and limitations. So the way that I recognize us as creators, so I like to say that God, if you will, source, is like a giant library of information, and you are a smaller library to the giant library, and so am I, and that's your soul, if you will. It's a library of information, and it's unique. It's unique to anyone and anything. And the way that we engage in a physical reality is we take this information called you, and we basically download it into the brain. So the soul is like the software in a computer. The brain is like the computer. So we basically download ourselves into the brain, then we communicate to the body, and think of the body as like a giant mall of people. So I'm either in synergistic communication, what am I doing? And then we send that message out and create. And well, first of all, we're not downloading ourselves into the brain. We're literally sitting in these little boxes, and they're like pentagonal shaped boxes, like a little pentagon, specifically a 5-sided container, because it's a closed grid container. And this has been created, for us. And so we're taking this library of information called you. You're sitting in these little boxes and you're listening to a book being read to you, and then you're communicating that to the body, and you're using that to create. And so what is this? So the book is the collective beliefs, what it means to be a man, a woman, what you can and can't do. That's all through the mind. And then the boxes, the edges of those boxes are created by your belief system, your limited belief system, in terms of something that you want to create, the parameters of your belief system. So in other words, it's like if I say to myself, how can I create money? And whatever limited belief system I might have creates the edges of those boxes. So the idea, again, if we go back to ascension, is that we are waking ourselves up to my own belief systems, not the collective belief systems. And why this is important is because we literally create through our thought and our emotion. So every single thought comes out of your head as a geometric shape. And that thought is the blueprint of your creation. It is the paper. Then you add an emotion to that thought. The emotion is the fuel. The emotion is the person and the pencil, right? So you take a thought, you add an emotion, you hold it 14 seconds or longer, then it moves into what's called the unified field, or the 0 point, the place of all frequencies, because the emotion gives it a frequency, right? So it goes into a place of all frequencies, it finds a match to that, goes out into the universe, and comes back into reality. So we're quite literally creating from our thought and our emotion. Well, if I give you the thought, and then I give you the emotion to connect to it, now you're never a conscious creator. You're only going to create what I desire. And so the magic to the ascension, or to the idea of love, or to any of this, is becoming the master of your own mind. So it's about mastering the mind. And how do we master the mind? We master the mind by recognizing that I can have a thought, or what's given to me, but I have a choice as to the emotional component I give it. So example could be, I could have a literal that says, I don't know where my money's coming from. So I could go, oh my God, I don't know where my money's coming from. Or I could go, I don't know. I don't have any idea. And if I'm in the second one, where I'm like, well, I have an idea, and I remember the creative process that your thought and your emotion create, now I can say, well, if I don't know, then anything can happen. I could win the lottery, I could get inheritance, somebody could give it to me, and now I'm in that no thing and all possibility energy, which is the present moment. And in this place, the other key to this is my intuition, which is my higher self, which is not the one embodied, that knows exactly why I'm here. I can hear that. This human self can connect with that in that space of neutrality. So if I like, okay, I don't know where my money's coming from, but I'm not in a panic, I'm just kind of in a neutral, I'm authentically present, then my intuition can come in. And you will have guidance, because people say, well, I can't just be in my house and have this happen. I said, well, that's not exactly true. You can, because you will have physical motion, but it's what physical motion? Because am I going to do it in a frantic, like, way? Then I'm creating at a very dense 3D limited way. But if instead I'm in a very relaxed, and I'm very present, and I say, okay, then I can get the guidance. And the guidance might be, initially, take a bath, have a nap. Because remember, the body is everything. This is the millionaire. This is the relation. Everything is the body, because whatever this body is vibrating as is sending out that message. And this is why I try to bring home to people. It's like, this is where we bypass all the time. It's like, see, because we've been given a projection of what we think the world is, and then we then take this amazing consciousness that we are and attach it ourselves to it, instead of like saying, okay, what do I really feel? And we have to keep it really simple. So I talk a lot about the present moment, which is the 0 point. It's like, I got my feet on the floor, I'm looking out my eyes, I'm literally in my room, because most of the time we're in what is the false present moment, which is I got my feet on the floor, I'm looking at my eyes, and I'm in my head. Because we've been programmed to torture ourselves, to judge ourselves, to cause ourselves to be frantic, to do this in the privacy of our own home, in the privacy of our own body. And I like to describe it. We literally, we're playing out basically 3 major frequencies: enslavement, imprisonment, and sacrifice. So we enslave ourselves within our belief systems, we imprison ourselves within the mind, and then we sacrifice health for money until we don't, because we've been somehow convinced to bring in the characters, the mother, the father, the whatever, inside our head, standing there 24/7, doing whatever they're doing, and we are reacting to them until we're not. And so, and this is the key to peace, to love, to joy, to whatever, is like, we got to bring it home right here first. We got to detach from it. So it's really a mastery of realizing, like, wait a minute, the I am that is right here. So it's like we become the witnessing observer of ourself. It's like there's another me over here, and I'm like, what am I doing? So I do this all the time, like before I go to sleep, and certainly before I get out of bed in the morning. I lay there and I check in. I'm like, okay, what's going on? And it's just such a deep dive of self-love. It's self-love. It's like, okay, what do you need? What's happening here? And the more we are in neutral, authentic neutral. And here's the thing about neutral. Authentic neutral, we are vibrating at the fastest rate there is. We are literally one with everything. We are our multidimensional self. We are one with everything. And all we're doing in human existence is matching frequencies in order to be comfortable. That's all we're doing, right? And think of frequencies simply as emotions. And so by universal law, faster moving frequencies always try to raise slower ones up to match them. So the example would be, if you and I come around each other and I'm happy and you're mad, what's going to happen is I'm going to irritate you, right? Because I'm vibrating at a faster rate, and because my happy is trying to raise you up. So as long as I stay happy, you only have 2 choices. You either get happy with me or you go away. Well, everything is frequency and energy, your clothes, your room, everything. So when we drop into that authentic neutrality, we literally detach. So I like to use the example. Imagine that you've been walking in the woods and you picked up all those chiggers, the sticky things, and you don't know, and you've got layers upon layers of them on you, but that's your normal. And suddenly, you go to a certain place that you stand, and they go, and you're like, wow, huh, I feel light. Look at all those things there. And so this is what happens when we drop into the 0 points. They come out like this. Now, they're going to still seek a match. So either we're going to re-embody them or we're going to let them go. So, the thing is, because everything in your environment you have already matched. So the key is to stay in that authentic neutrality, and certainly with compassion for self, compassion for others. It's also where we get into divine forgiveness, a bigger, which is forgive me, forgive you, love me, love you, compassion for me, compassion for you, gratitude for me, gratitude for you. And so, and the other piece about this I think is super important that people don't realize is that, remember, I said that, faster moving frequencies always try to raise slower ones up. And so you can literally irritate that. You're irritating that person. Well, you in your I am presence are vibrating faster than your body, because the body is the thing that's ascending, right? And so, the first dropping into that 0 point might be uncomfortable. Your body might be reactive. And so then it's like, instead of like, oh my gosh, because what are we going to do? We're going to retract it because we're going to meet it again and go, oh, take a breath. And we allow for that, what is it that's happening? And the more that we stay in that neutrality, see, because it's all about frequency, those denser frequencies cannot sustain themselves. So they will have to dissolve and continue to dissipate away. And so this is really that inner work, and it's both in the physical body, whatever's going on, if you have anything physically in your body, but certainly in the emotional body and all the different lifetimes and things that take place. So as I said, it's a bigger journey of what you were asking, but I think it's a good starting point for your audience to kind of get an idea of how things work.
Okay, so you've described a lot for us, and this is going to seem like the dumbest question of all, but it's meant to just get
There
us.
are no dumb questions, don't worry.
Well, this will be close. This will be very close.
No.
So we're not alone in the universe. There's galactic life. We're not the only party in town. We're not the only casino on the strip. When did you first get a chance to, not necessarily the way you first described in light form, but when did you first have, I don't know, a direct experience one way or the other, maybe age 8 and up with like an Arcturian, Andromedan, person from Orion, I'm going to lose my English here, Lyran, something like that. Could you give us a concrete moment where even today you're still like, wow, that was a watershed mark for me. Just remember to keep it real. Do you have one of those that you could share?
Well, so I'm a little different, my my consciousness energy library of information is quite large, and so I'm not from here. My consciousness is from first source. I'm one of the original seeders of the planet. I'm also one of the original aspects of the false matrix. So I kind of have a bigger awareness. You know, I, for myself, it's not really like that. I mean, I guess the first sort of strongest would have been the Arcturians. I did have one time, I had gone to Mount Shasta. The very first time I ever went to Mount Shasta, I've been on a kind of geographical pilgrimage because I work with the Earth's like grid lines and so on and so on. And part of it, I was in Asheville, North Carolina at the time, and I was guided to go there because it was built on a crystal. And then I knew that I was moving from there, but I didn't know where I was going. And so for whatever reason, I got guided to fly into Oregon, and Eugene, Oregon. I don't even know. I still don't really know why Eugene, Oregon, but that's where I went. And when I flew in there, I realized that Mount Shasta wasn't very far. I didn't even know that. But once I landed there, I was like, oh, it's not very far. So I rented a car and I drove to Mount Shasta. And even though I had, paid for a place to stay in Eugene, I knew I was supposed to stay overnight in Mount Shasta. And that night is when definitely the Arcturians, I think it was also Andromedans. I think it was the Telos. There were some beings from Telos literally came in the room, where I saw them with my physical eyes. And that was very profound because I don't normally have it that way. It's more of like kind of like a layer inside of that. Like I can see the entire template. And so where my consciousness is quite large, and so I can look at the entire template. And I know this may be a little bit for you because you may be new to this, but being able to see the entire aspect of everything, of all things, because everything's one anyway. But that moment, I was like, wow, okay, so I'm actually physically seeing them. And I had an apparition of Jesus came in, Yeshua. Then that was about 18 that came right in, and looked me like in the face. That was the very first apparition aspect, but the galactic, was at the time Mount Shasta.
And I think it was a hotel room you said. Do you mind if I just ask, did you get a chance to go back and forth with communication? Was it just that they were there, you felt it, and it was beyond words? Do you mind adding just one more layer of flavor?
Yeah, no, it was a whole download, but it wasn't like their mouths were moving kind of thing like that. It was, I can't remember exactly because it was a long time ago of what the information, but it was definitely a big download of something that took place in my energetic field, because that's always the way that it is. And when we think of downloads, think of them as yourself giving this you information, because that's really what it is. It's like we have a higher self, and then we have an oversoul, and then we have different templates of self. And the oversoul aspect is communicating to you, of your who you are, who you've been, that kind of stuff. So those are what we call downloads, and so, and these Arcturians were aspects of self. So this is the other part too, is that, remember I said we're made up of, like, I think it's like 26 different galactic beings in our DNA, because we've had a lot of crossing of DNA over generations of time. And we've also been these beings. And this is this hard part. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous to think that we're the only ones in the universe. I mean, really think of that concept. It's like, that is because what's happened is that there is what's called the false matrix. I don't know how much you know about that, but a matrix is basically the template, the design of what we think is life itself, the whole structure of life, of the way that you go to work, and that's all been projected onto humanity to keep humanity guessing and very small. And then history's been changed, and it's constantly been changing. And we're at kind of a crescendo right now of these beings, because there have been beings here on the planet for quite a long time that came here. Some came here to directly enslave humanity. Others came here to try to help, to better, and part of my consciousness was connected to that timeline. And I know that my particular participation was not in a nefarious way. It wasn't by design in that way. It was to better humanity. But then, we learned that you can still go against sovereignty. And what sovereignty means self-governed internally. And the example that I was given would be something like, if you have a child that you're seeing is super smart and whatever, and you end up giving them this information and they abuse it, and part of it is because they're a child and they're not ready. But the other part is that just even as a human, if we're watching a child, and say a child's playing in the dirt and so on, and their natural gravitation is maybe towards the bugs and the animals and so on, so maybe they would end up being some type of connected to growth or whatever. And because we're a doctor, maybe a medical doctor, we're like, no, we're going to redirect them. Well, that's going against the natural evolutionary aspect of that being. And this is really kind of what happened for humanity. Humanity was dropped in from other beings. That's why if you really research the history, we went very fast, from sort of almost cavemen to, some type of, energetic awareness. And that was because their beings called Anunnaki came and did that. But and that was part of what my consciousness contributed to, but not from a place of nefarious, which is why I'm here, to bring it into neutrality and to help restore the sovereignty of humanity in whatever capacity I can do. Not me personally, but energetically. But the beings that did not have the highest and best, they're still here, and they have just gone so far away from light and God consciousness that they've completely forgotten. And the only way for them to exist is to siphon light or energy from another. And so this has been the game, and this is kind of what we're waking up to now. Is like so think about fear, right? How we can siphon energy. So, we're energy and frequency, and think about what fear does. This is why there's nothing to fear but fear itself, right? Because what fear does is it causes you to contract. But remember, I said, if we need a kind of container, right, for our consciousness to have a physical reality, right? So the body's the container. Well, imagine if that were a room, and imagine that, in the corner of the room, you have a candle lit. that would mean like, 25% of the room is light. That means 75% of the room is dark. So the difference between light and dark is information. Light is information, dark is the absence of information. Well, if that were you and your body, that would mean 25% of me is operating my body. That means 75% is something else. What is that? It's the collective beliefs, it's so on and so on. And it's that 75% is being dissipated out. But, if we go back to the room, in order to release all the darkness, all I have to do is expand that candlelight across the room and all the darkness goes away. It's the same thing within our body as we breathe and expand our energy, right? So that's why fear works so well, because you contract and then your light goes out to everything else. You see what I mean? So that's when we get back to, the story that I say, it's about being in the present moment. It's about letting go. It's about realizing we're just kids on the playground and, just being yourself, letting go and allowing yourself. So we have to keep it really, really simple. And I said, it's a much bigger thing that's going on because we don't realize how really powerful and amazing we are. We are creators. We create, and like I happen to be a creator being. It was just a little different than the creator themselves, but everybody creates. We're all create in general, everybody creates and we create, like I said, through our thought and our emotion. So yeah, it's like, I try to keep it very simple. So in a simplistic way, we have so much power and so much ability to create exactly the life and for all of humanity. But we're guided away from that. We're constantly told what we can and can't do and those limits and limitations. And, and if you look at my website, you'll see everything that I do is about restoring this, because it's just, we're told things, we judge, and if we stop judging and we let go, if all of humanity suddenly dropped into absolute neutral, all of this would go away. And we would restore this template. So I think it's very exciting. We're in a very exciting time right now because I'm aware that a lot of these bigger, we'll call it templates, so these places where humanity has the ability now to connect to everything we're saying. This was the thing, is that through this intervention, let's say, from other beings, they shut down what are called grid systems. When I was talked before about this, the rings around the earth, that person said, these are actually grid systems. And what a grid system does is it allows for a frequency to come into a certain location and keep its integrity. And so it'd be like the earth's original frequencies are love, truth, beauty, and goodness. This is what we're meant to have here. But these beings came and they cut off these grid systems. And so what that did is that cut off authentic love, truth, beauty, and goodness. And so that meant that we as a collective had to decide what those things were. That's why we have so many variances, like love is, drugs or alcohol or sex or whatever, right? Instead of it being authentic. Really what I feel love is authentic mother, divine female mother frequency, which is this nurturing, compassion, connectedness, flow energy. It's a mother arc frequency, so yeah.
I don't think in many shows, out of 165 shows taped so far, please subscribe, like, comment, and share what you've enjoyed so far from Cathleena, or just about the conversation at large. I don't think in 165 shows we've focused too much on negativity at all. We're only going to do it for half a second, because where you put your focus is where you put your focus. How you spend your energy is how you spend it. But when you talk about beings that aren't here for our highest intent, are they from someplace else far, far away? Are they interdimensional? Were they always here at first? Do you mind sticking a name on there if there's Pleiadians, Andromedans, light beings, angels, spirit guides, fairies, you name it? Do you mind just giving one tiny bit of detail so there's a little more understanding of the dynamics?
Well, here's the thing about that is that, we've been these beings and they are, it's Anunnaki or it's the reptilian consciousness and so on. And it's not about good or bad, right or wrong. There is no there really isn't any of that. Everything is just experience, and it's not really, and that's why I said is the idea of light and dark is just information and a lack of information. And so, it's just super important to have compassion and basically love and support for these beings that are here. They've just forgotten that they're source consciousness. That's really what it is. And so because they've forgotten, and they're in survival mode, and their survival mode is that they're not attached. It's like their battery, they're only a battery support. They're no longer plugged into the main source. Then they have to, support themselves through getting, energy from another battery source. That's kind of the idea. But I think it's important to step away from, the idea of good and bad, right and wrong, in that sense of some type of energies that are in that, in that field. So yeah, so it's not about negative or positive. It just simply is awareness, that this has been the case. And the idea of not having the highest and best just means it's happening everywhere. It's the idea that it's about power. So it's about playing the game of what I say is false power. And false power is something greater or less than something else. Authentic power is there's nothing greater than that I am, because I'm source consciousness. So it's forgetting that you're already powerful. So it means nothing if you control something that is smaller than you, or what, it's just sort of that awakening, and it was just a journey. It's just been a journey. It's just been a experiment, because it's a free will experiment. So we just learned some parameters about a free will experiment, that sometimes that people can come in and realize that they're already more powerful, and they can choose to, do something to control somebody else, kind of in that energy. But
You said that really compassionately, and there's no right or wrong, but there is proper understanding. Angel said that probably in 2014 or something like that. I'm going to read a couple quotes to you, whether they're from famous folks, Herman Melville, Gary Zukav. We'll get a reaction. It could be Winnie the Pooh. I've got one, though, from Archangel Uriel that just said, if more people would listen, less conflict would arise in any given situation. And I'll give two more. I got 18 pages of quotes, so I'm going to randomly do this. Although random has turned into like two Winnie the Pooh quotes in a row, so hopefully not Winnie today. Yeah, and this is what you were talking about before. Abraham Hicks, emotion is the business of life. Words do not teach. Receiving of energy accomplishes anything. If we could stop with those two, that is plenty right there. If more people would listen, less conflict would arise in any given situation. And the second one is still fresh. Can you talk to us about how receiving of energy is everything?
I just think that if, humans can come from their heart, not their mind, I think that's really the key, right? It's like, and the difference is the present moment. It's like, if I am authentically in the present moment, there is no past or future going on there. It's the mind that carries that, so that's a dead giveaway there, or it's a given, that I'm not in the present moment if I'm, thinking of the past, or projecting something from the past or from the future. And so I think that's really as simple as that. It really is just about being in that present moment, having authentic experience, and we don't realize that we're guided away from that all the time. It really is as simple. We're constantly in our head trying to figure things out. And, I'm not absent of this. This has been my journey. But that's the mastery we talked about before. It's about mastering the mind. It's about just saying, okay, I'm authentically going to be present. I mean, like, even when I go places, I purposely will like pause in my car for a minute and really drop in to the present moment. You feel your feet on the floor, you feel yourself sitting there. And even as you're walking towards the door or something, you just notice, because we're just so trained to size people up, to protect, to do all the different things. And so, there's a difference between present moment awareness from my whole senses, which is when I'm in my heart space, versus my head where I'm like guarding, and I'm, and it's just a practice. It's just a continual practice. This is really what it is. And it's realizing that, we have a choice. And I'm going to keep emphasizing it goes back to the simplistic aspect about me. Where am I? What am I doing? You know, am I in my own head, second guessing myself? You know, how many times have we been standing next to somebody? Or think about, like, if you're going on a date and, you know, you get that nervousness that happens, and what do? We shut it down or whatever. What if we didn't? And we allowed it to happen. And so what I then imagine is that a small child shows up, because it's the younger version of yourself that's in that whole nervousness that we're shutting down. So imagine a small child shows up, and what I say is to be the most incredible parent that you can be to that child. And what that is for me is let them be. And so what it would be is you just sweat bullets, you do whatever, you know, whatever happens. And I think what's most important is later when you're at home and you do that self-punishing, oh, what did I do? Da-da. And you remember that it's that little you that's saying that, and that you're supporting. You said, what you did is you showed up. Yay, good for you. All right, let's do it again. And it's just, it's getting comfortable in that, right? That quirkiness, that oddness, that everything. Same with like the galactics and everything. It's why humanity has a hard time with, like, can this be real? Can this not? You know, and the other piece is that the human brain is not really designed to give you that proof that you're looking for, because the human story says, I want to solidly know. Well, there's nothing solid, doesn't exist. So you have to have a knowing from inside yourself. You just really, and you can have that knowing when you're present, when you're there. It's like what you know about you. It's like why you're here and what you believe. And it's not about convincing anybody. So this is where we let go of. So I don't have to show up, and I don't do anything for anybody. And the more we do that, the easier it becomes. You know, and life becomes easier and easier.
Can you talk to us about, like, some people describe it as materialist science, or we can use the UAP UFO, call it seeking. I mean, it's thinkers doing their thinking and doing the FOIA requests, all the necessary at a thinking level, checking the boxes or asking questions and demanding proof, or wanting what you said, the brain's version of concrete, you know, certainty. Can you talk to us just about how it's kind of the big paper chase? If anybody remembers the 1970s legal movie or series, it's never really going to stop. You can think about something forever. It's different than actually doing it, believing it, or being in your heart. How do you view the UAP, UFO current discussions? How do you view current science? Do you feel like literally if 4,018 to 24-year-olds would listen more to the universe, they could walk into any field of science, macrobiology, astrophysics, enjoy it for a little bit, and then just sort of implode it and move right through it into a broader astrophysics? How do you describe all that?
Yeah, I think you just described it. I think absolutely. And I think that um, you know, we're in a place that's been limited. So I think that you know, everything that anyone has, everyone has, because it's a quantum field. The quantum field means there's one, you know, so it's all accessible to anyone at any time, you know, the information. And it really is just about getting out of your own way. You know, I think that's the bigger key. It's just getting out of your own way. And you know, this world has been created with limits and has been given specific parameters of information to keep you in a loop, you know, so to speak. But it can't happen anymore because we're in a new epoch. We're moving. The energies have ascended. The grid systems are in place. It's different, you know. It's like the energies are too much. We're awakening. You know, you can't keep it down anymore. You know, it's kind of what's happening. And so, yeah, I think we're going to start seeing this more and more and more. And it is interesting because now I'm not big into the science field itself, but I am aware that there are some significant scientists, and don't ask me the names because I couldn't tell you, but I've heard that there are some significant scientists that are actually beginning to speak about consciousness and things, because they were like, oh, you know, consciousness is not real. And consciousness is information and energy. So yeah, I think like anything, people get their own parameters of where they're comfortable. And, you know, it's kind of that misery likes companies, you bring other people in. And it's also that we don't realize that how we've identified ourselves. I mean, I work with people all the time that are identified as a victim, and they say they want to come out of it, but they're so familiar with it that's the challenge. And so we have to be willing to own that. We have to be willing to own who we are and say, and that's my story where I would say, I used to wake up in the morning and I'd hear you're such a failure. And I was like racing around trying to get things done. And one morning I woke up and the idea is you start to notice, what is my thought and what is my emotion? And more importantly, what is it doing to this vehicle? Because remember, your thought and your emotion is creating. So I noticed my thoughts, or listened to my thought, you're such a failure. And I felt the emotion and I realized there was some comfort in this. And I was like, oh, interesting. I didn't judge it. I just noticed it, that I was comfortable dialoguing, that I was a failure. It was familiar. And so now that I had the authentic frequency that I was creating, I could ask myself, do I really want this anymore? And I was like, no. And so what began to happen is, I started to say, well, what really is failure and what really is success? And what am I doing to myself? And whose voice is this anyway? And so this is when we start to really wake ourselves up, like, what have I been doing to me based on what I believe and think, And so this is really the next levels. And I feel like that's with everything, science and mathematics, everything is designed to keep you in a little box. And we're anything but that. And this is this idea of these beings that didn't have the highest and best. And if we think about it, it's no different than anyone who's uncomfortable and they want to keep status quo, but it's not happening. And so we will gently, lovingly help them, because we have to all ascend together anyway. It's not, I mean, it is still, there's still God consciousness. Everybody is still God consciousness.
Yeah, compassion is within all, just many different levels of awareness in mankind, or for each person. I've got a little passage I'm going to read. It's actually probably like 22-sentence paragraphs, so literally max of a minute and 20 seconds. Very gentle, talking about mankind, written by angels. Take this with a grain of salt, but it's so fluffy and easy. I'd love to get your reaction on it. It's in an appendix of a little 40-page book, channeled. I'm seeing balls of light as I'm typing. If anybody thinks I wrote this, thank you. Good luck with that. What's up with mankind? Why angels now? Remembering that their origin stories are from Andromeda, Orion, Sirius, domestic, all over the map, all over the cosmos. Just pure love, not here to interfere. Here's the passage. Awareness for mankind is on the horizon. Call it a spiritual awakening if you wish. It's a chance for all to grow. Mankind is ready for more unconditional love and compassion for all, and more compassion by all for all is needed. Mankind is ready for change from rat race mode. Happiness is obtained in the absence of ego. Ego's afraid to be vulnerable, to let go, and to be in the unknown. Again, there's nothing to lose and nothing to gain. Move past seeing the negative. Compassion can be taught through one's actions. How? Slowing down would do a world of wonder for most people. Doing it consistently is where the problems and opportunities lie. So stay present, what you've been saying the whole show. Start right now. Letting go means less thinking. Do not get lost in perceived tasks, roles, ego, etc. Being in the moment is to do compassion for all. For individuals, an egoless path will be great, but it's just not realistic. Allow ego to serve as a reminder when it pops up, a reminder for what? You decide. How about a reminder to breathe? How about a reminder to enjoy each moment as it comes? Believe that all moments can be the same. Whether it's a moment at work or a moment looking at nature, all moments are the same and peaceful. Only thinking something can interfere with this. Likewise, there are not separate paths for mankind or separate worlds for individuals. One is one. Through awareness and owning the consequences of one's thoughts and actions, a person begins to see how all of life is truly interconnected in one. Faith in all can lead to a change in mankind. This is the path for all of man. This is about man bringing peace and joy to all. This is about your personal growth in your life and finding the next stage in your soul's development, as well as the continued evolution of mankind. The greatest gift is allowing. All is growth and change. This is frightening for some. There's nothing to do here. Slow down the doing. Instead, breathe, smile, and relax. Appreciate all. Last little bit. Compassion for all is life. This is also about acceptance for all. Regard others as yourself generously and without fixation. Believe in all. It's much simpler than people think. Again, this is because this is not about thinking, but less thinking. Open yourself up to life. Speak with us, angels. Be. Did you like that?
It's very interesting. Yeah, I think it was profound. Sure.
Okay. What's your take on it, though, in your own direction for mankind? Again, you've been talking about it throughout the show. How do you?
I think it's pretty much what you just said. I think it's exactly, it's about letting go. It's about opening your heart. It's about having compassion. And the one piece that I will add is that, I always say when the ego finds its placement in a good way. And what that means is that when this you can let go of the control that she or he is doing in the world, and know that we have a higher self that knows why we're here. And that letting go allows us to be in that present moment, allows us to just have authentic experience, to be the kids on the playground, to show up as ourselves, to step outside of the dialogue that keeps being thrown at us about how we're supposed to be. I mean, when you go out into the world, and especially we're all so empathic and we're feeling things and we're sensing things, and then we're taught to notice each other, and to be self-conscious of what other people think. But it's kind of irony because everybody's just thinking about what they think and nobody's thinking about anybody anyway. But we have this illusion that we're thinking about, we got to watch what other people think, and we have this illusion that we need to fit in, but that's not even possible in the bigger picture, because we are absolutely unique. And so, trusting that, allowing that, being in that present moment is the absolute key. It really is. It's just, and so, if we can somehow have faith, trust, and surrender that I'm here for a purpose, and that there is something greater than me, there's another part of me that is not in this physical body at the moment, that knows exactly why I'm here. So instead of me, judging myself and shrinking and hiding and whatever, just take a breath. Open your heart, step in, be present, and just listen to your own intuition. This is how I got here. I mean, if you would have asked me 5 years ago, 10 years ago, if I'd be doing what I'm doing, I would have no awareness of that. And I had very gentle, because we do that. I was very conservative, I had to have gentle, easy steps to get me somewhere, because we have this fear and this whole thing, but it was like, no, this is happening. And, at this point, I'm kind of like, here I am, I'm out of the galactic closet. We're all here. We are beings of light. And, and I say in a very loving, comfortable way, I don't care. And it's not, I don't care. Like, I don't care. I don't care in a way that is supportive and compassionate and loving. And, that I see that you feel, with the angels, is that kind of energetic. I'm not as connected to the angel. I have been years ago, but it's kind of a different energy aspect. And not that the angelic kingdom isn't beautiful and light, and absolutely. But on a day-to-day, for me, it's the different parameters of where my consciousness sits. But it's all the same thing. It's just really, when we can be aware, what am I doing? I mean, my experience is that this world is designed to try to shut you down, and not because it's horrible and nefarious. It's because, as I said, these beings have forgotten that they're God consciousness. And so they can't do what we can do right now, which is let go and be in our heart space. I mean, they can, but in order for them to do that, they have to dissolve to prime creator. And that means in their mind, let's just say, they no longer exist. And that's the thing that's so complicated for these beings. But we've been these beings. We are these beings, because we're one. It's a one field. And we literally have been these beings in other lifetimes, and so there's no us against them. There's nothing like that. It's all just one beautiful quantum field. And I always say, try to keep it really simple to you, and this has definitely been my journey. How am I doing? What am I doing? And not from a place of self-consciousness. Trust me, I've done that. I've definitely been in the self-conscious on both ends. I've heard you're too much, or what are you doing? Or, we've all heard these things. And then we adjust ourselves constantly because we want to feel loved and we want to blah, blah, blah. There's just a million things that we're doing until we learn, okay, there's always going to be what I call the archetypes. There's lots of different archetypes that we've been, and the characters and the roles of the men and the women and everything. And you know, when we can have compassion and love for every single one of them, and appreciation and gratitude for every person that ever comes into your reality, you know, it's just like magical. And this has certainly been my journey.
Well, Cathleena, thank you very much for being on Angels, Positivity, and Love. Wonderful interview, a lot of sharing. And again, thank you very much.
And thank you. Beautiful. All right. Take care.